Okay, so let's just jump right in. We know you're here because you're committed to being well-informed, and today's deep dive is really a shortcut through a whole stack of sources.
It is. And these sources, they challenge some pretty conventional ideas about, centralized power, government secrecy, and even public health.
Absolutely. We're talking about everything from post-World War II secret operations all the way to, believe it or not, the chemical contents of baby powder.
And the mission here is to find the patterns, right?
Yeah.
To uncover how these things connect and to really understand the crucial role of, well, public skepticism.
Let's start with something that, frankly, sounds like a spy movie, but was completely real and kept secret for decades. Project Gladio.
Gladio, yeah. This was an operation set up by the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA right after World War II.
And the basic idea was what?
The idea was audacious. They decided to leave a few hundred American soldiers behind in Europe secretly. They'd hide caches of weapons, explosives, all sorts of things in these hidden bunkers and just sit tight.
Okay, so the official story, the one you'd expect from the Cold War, was to stop communism.
Exactly, to fight the Soviets if they ever invaded Western Europe. A stay-behind army. That was the cover.
But the sources we looked at show that their actual actions, they weren't aimed at the Soviets at all.
Not even close. They were aimed at our allies, at the citizens of Italy, Germany, Belgium.
Wait, what do you mean aimed at?
I mean, they engaged in acts of terrorism. The sources are clear. They bombed the train station in Bologna, Italy in 1980, killed 85 people.
85 civilians.
And injured hundreds more. Or the Oktoberfest bombing in Germany. That killed 17. These were Gladio operations.
So, if the goal was anti-Soviet, why on earth would they attack Allied civilians? I don't get it.
It was about political influence, pure and simple. The goal of the terrorism was to create what they called a strategy of tension.
To scare people.
To scare people into voting for right-leaning, more authoritarian governments that the CIA felt they could, deal with. It was about steering these countries away from any socialist path.
So it was a secret war on democracy, basically.
In our allied nations, yes. And this network eventually grew to a 20,000-person secret army across Europe, and it didn't end until 1990.
Unbelievable. The sources even mentioned the assassination of a former prime minister, Aldo Moro, in Italy.
They do. He was kidnapped, his bodyguards were all killed, and then he was shot and left in the trunk of a car. The official story blamed a terrorist group, but the evidence points straight back to these networks.
It just shows what happens when power operates with zero oversight.
And that's the key, isn't it? Oversight. That comes from a skeptical public. Without it, you get simple stories that buy time. Which brings us to how those stories get made, the whole infrastructure of narrative control.
Right. And according to these sources, it's not some shadowy conspiracy anymore. They point to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act.
Passed during the Obama administration.
And it basically made it legal to use propaganda on American citizens.
It did. It blurred those lines completely. Historically, you had things like Project Mockingbird, where the CIA had hundreds of American journalists on its payroll, directly or indirectly.
And the Church Committee supposedly shut that down in the 70s.
Supposedly. But in today's world, with global information, all you have to do is float a false story overseas, and it comes right back to the U.S. anyway. And now it's actually legal to push it domestically.
And these manipulation tactics have gotten so much more sophisticated. The sources give a recent example from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, from 2018 or 2019, they used not just bots, but 40,000 paid individuals to get specific narratives trending on Twitter.
Like the one targeting Jeff Bezos.
Exactly. They can manufacture a viral trend. So here's the question. If a foreign power can do that so easily, what do you think our own centralized power structures are capable of?
It means the real war is for perception. And a crisis is the best time to seize control of it.
Which is a perfect segue into the COVID lockdowns.
Yeah, let's look at the effects. Every Western nation, more or less, put its citizens under a form of house arrest. They closed businesses, churches, beaches.
But liquor stores and big box retailers like Target could stay open.
Right. The outcome, as detailed in the sources, was this massive division in society. And as we know, division is a source of power. It allows for more control.
The scale of government control was something we hadn't seen, maybe ever. The sources compare it to all the world wars put together in terms of global reach, and the planning for this narrative control, it seems, was very intentional.
The sources point to something called Event 201.
Yes, a tabletop exercise held in late 2019, just a few months before the pandemic hit.
And look who was there. The Gates Foundation, the CIA, the Chinese CDC, the military, even CBS News.
And the most fascinating part, the entire focus of the exercise was on controlling information, not on public health, not on treatments or cures. It was all about how to manage the narrative, how to control what people think during a pandemic.
So you see the strategy of controlling the narrative. And then you see another pattern emerge from the sources: delaying accountability.
It's a corporate and governmental playbook. You manage liability by just waiting. You delay and delay until the people making the claims are gone.
Which brings us to the Institute of Medicine, the IOM. Sounds official.
It sounds very official. It's a private organization, but it's often funded by the government and by pharmaceutical companies. It serves as this perfect buffer, a supposedly neutral third party that can debunk claims and delay compensation.
The Agent Orange case is just a brutal example of this.
It's devastating. The chemical used, dioxin, was tested on 40 monkeys. 37 of them died within a week. That study was immediately classified, hidden for decades.
So when veterans started getting sick and demanding compensation,
The IOM stepped in. They started doing studies in 2001, 2006, 2008, 2010. On and on. And for 22 years, the conclusion was always the same.
more studies needed.
More studies needed. Every time. It was a strategy to let the claimants literally die off. Admiral Zumwalt, the man who ordered the use of Agent Orange and whose own son died from it, he later testified that officials intentionally manipulated or withheld the information.
When you have an admiral saying it was intentional, that's not negligence. That's a conscious strategy.
It is. And we see the exact same playbook with Johnson & Johnson's baby powder.
Right. They told the FDA their talc had cancer-causing asbestos in it. And the FDA.
Spent the next 44 years studying how much asbestos might be okay to have in baby powder. 44 years. J&J itself knew for 52 years.
So with that context, that history of intentional delay and cover-ups, you have to then look at other public health narratives with a more critical eye.
Especially when the companies involved are granted zero liability.
So let's tackle a few of those narratives from the source material, starting with polio.
Okay, so the sources cite statistics directly from the CDC's own website. And what they say is that 99% of all polio cases are completely asymptomatic.
Meaning you wouldn't even know you had it. Maybe a cold, some sniffles.
Exactly. So the narrative focused on the 1% that caused paralysis, creating this massive fear. But if you look at the paralysis numbers today from 2022, there were 564 cases globally.
Okay.
Of those, 97% were vaccine-induced poliomyelitis, meaning they came from the live virus used in the vaccine itself.
So the sources are essentially asking, if the disease is 99% benign, was the risk inflated to justify a product that itself carries a documented risk?
That's the question they pose. Same with tetanus. It's a bacteria. You get it from deep puncture wounds, not rust. It's not transmissible.
And the risk is incredibly low in the U.S. The sources say 13 deaths over a decade, all elderly.
Fewer than 1 in a million risk.
Yeah.
The vaccine can be given after an injury occurs. So again, the sources question the logic of giving 5 prophylactic injections to babies for something so rare and treatable.
The narrative control aspect seems to come to a head with the vaccine and autism debate.
It really does. The sources cite leaked transcripts from the IOM committee that was tasked with ruling on this.
It's the same IOM.
The very same. And in the first hour of their first meeting, they decided, and I'm paraphrasing, that they would not acknowledge autism as a true side effect. They focused on the language, the rhetoric, before even digging into the science.
So they essentially established the public narrative from the get-go.
They did. They concluded no more studies were needed, and the story became, it's debunked, case closed.
And when you look at the actual ingredients lists that the sources provide for some of these vaccines, it raises more questions.
The list is pretty surprising to many people. You have things like formaldehyde, polysorbate 80, which has been linked to infertility in animal studies, potassium chloride, which is used in lethal injections.
And then there are the biological components.
Right. Gelatin from boiled pig skin, chicken embryo proteins, cow fetus heart blood, DNA fragments from human fetuses, monkey kidney DNA. It's a complex formula.
So when you take all that, and then you look at the financial track record of the companies making them, it really puts it all into a different perspective.
A hugely different perspective. These pharma manufacturers, over the last 30 years, they've paid $62 billion in fines, criminal and civil.
But they've made trillions.
Trillions. Pfizer paid what was, at the time, the largest criminal fine in U.S. history for illegal marketing. Johnson & Johnson, billions for the opioid crisis, billions for the baby powder deception.
Eli Lilly, with Zyprexa, paid billions in settlements for causing strokes and death, but the drug made them $40 billion.
It's a pattern. The fines are just a cost of doing business. The criminal behavior is profitable. So this brings up the most important question of all.
Why do we place so much trust in companies with this established record of criminality, especially when we've given them products with zero liability?
Exactly.
So after all of this, what does it all mean for you? We've laid out a clear pattern from the sources. Centralized power, whether it's the government or a corporation, uses secrecy, it uses propaganda, it uses regulatory capture.
All to achieve its own strategic goals, which are often, not aligned with public safety or the truth.
The real takeaway here isn't to be pessimistic. It's to be skeptical, to be an informed skeptic.
That's it. Knowing about Gladio or understanding how the IOM delayed Agent Orange claims or seeing the actual polio stats, it gives you a critical lens. It allows you to make your own informed, individualized decisions for yourself and your family.
And we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on, something that ties this whole pattern of deception directly to official U.S. foreign policy. I want you to look up the Kissinger Report.
This was drafted in 1974, signed into law by President Ford in 1975. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's declassified policy.
And it made population reduction in 12 specific foreign countries the official foreign policy of the United States.
The stated reason is just chilling. It was to limit their development so they wouldn't use up their own raw materials that the U.S. needed.
The policy included paying for vasectomies, and it included using injections like a tetanus vaccine mixed with a hormone called HCG to secretly sterilize women, which was documented in places like India and Peru.
So the final question for you is this. Given this documented official history of government-mandated deception and control for strategic purposes, how should that inform your skepticism about public health and global development initiatives today?
Something for you to ponder long after this deep dive is over.